I've been playing a lot of platformers recently, and I found that a lot of the newer ones have been incorporating a lot of extreme difficulty, but is that really necessary in order to make the game good? A lot of the games that I found myself playing and enjoying the most have been platforming puzzle games, where every time that you complete a puzzle or challenge, you actually feel like you've accomplished something. One of those games that I've been playing most recently is a free-to-play exploration adventure platforming game called You Have to Win the Game. Hi everybody, I'm Stephanie Old World Gamer, and welcome to the Indie Source. Normally I would have a montage here with some music in the game, but unfortunately this game did not have a soundtrack, and thus we will just dive straight into the review. You Have to Win the Game was created by developer J. Kyle Pittman, who has had a shining career thus far and has even gone on to make a sequel to You Have to Win the Game called Super Win the Game. Pittman also interned and later worked at Gearbox, working with the team that made Borderlands, and went on to also work on Borderlands 2. During his stay with Gearbox, he used his spare time to dedicate himself to creating his own indie games as part of the Guildhall programmer curriculum he had started earlier, and even went on to create his own 3D rendering engine that he later used on his very first indie game, Arc Aether Anomalies. During the development of You Have to Win the Game, Pittman would gather inspiration from other great platforming games like VVVVVV and Super Great Box, and instead of focusing on types of enemies, he decided that harder series of jumps and puzzles would be a different but great approach. Quite honestly, he was correct. I thoroughly enjoyed this game for its simplicity, and although there was no music in the game, which is something I always love about video games, it almost added to the atmosphere of being alone underground. And while wandering around, you will find that some areas have taken on a bit of a homage from other games, such as the Legend of Zelda's Link's Adventures, like boss curtains and the white pillars. You usually see those whenever you find a new item in the game. And I find myself looking for retro pixel-styled indie games, and Pittman delivers in a big way, and if he continues on the path he's on, I expect nothing but further greatness. Released on May 6, 2012, this game has you play as a teenage man who runs through different screens, facing obstacle after obstacle and looking for your next challenge. When you start the game up, the game has like a windowed border that resembles an old computer monitor, or even like an old TV from the 80s, which just immediately amps up the nostalgic retro feel. You Have to Win the Game has a great learning curve, and there's no doubt that when you come to an obstacle you cannot overcome, that you know it's because you're either doing it wrong, or you have to get an item to help you proceed further. And the entire point of the game is quite simply completion. As mentioned before, you will come across other certain items throughout your quest that will aid you in reaching different areas and obtaining 100% completion. These items include the Crimson and Cerulean auras, which allow for the red and blue outline blocks to become filled in with their respective colors, so you can access certain areas. You can also get spider gloves, which allow for wall climbing, and spring heel boots, which allow for double jumping, which, so nice. You'll still have to keep track of places you've been and places you couldn't access, or you can find yourself wandering in circles a lot just to find those last few percentage points. Finding a new area always, feels rewarding, and I found myself always looking forward to what was waiting for me on the next screen, whether it be, a jump sequence over spikes or a large creature throwing killer orbs at me. But regardless, each challenge was fun, and sometimes it took some thinking and a lot of skill to get to some areas in the game. The final challenge of completing the game is entering a password, which the player must figure out from the clues written along the walls when you're playing through the maze-like world. Each clue is fairly straightforward, while others can be a bit cryptic and may confuse some players, but I guess it's all about perspective. The whole way of getting the password thing at the end, again, you just have to play it to understand what I'm saying. You Have to Win the Game has won countless website awards for being one of the best new free platformers of 2012, and one of the most interesting facts I found out about this game is that it was also ported over to the Commodore 64 by the Commodore 64 programmer Kabuto. And Pittman also says that there's a cartridge version of the game in the works, and I can only hope that I can get this game for my NES, because that would be superb. So, in case anyone wasn't aware, I'm highly receptive to pixel-style graphics, and you have to win the game has some awesome and super nostalgic graphics. The simple black and pink color scheme just works so well. It kind of gives the game its own personality, and it kind of reminds me of the ZX Spectrum and how limited it was with its color schemes. The items looked very nice, and the few enemies that were present, mostly just those orb-throwing enemies, they were done quite well. There's no mistaking what each was supposed to be in the game, whereas like back in the NES days, a UFO could have just as easily been like a flying paper plate or a random hubcap or something. I enjoyed the pixel style, and I know that Pittman made the graphics for the sequel along the lines of a 16-bit pixel style, which has me kind of excited to pick the game up. Unfortunately, the game didn't have a soundtrack, but I assume Pittman was not a sound engineer, so I don't blame him for not trying to attempt random music, which could have quite easily taken away from the game. In fact, like I said earlier, the quietness of the game almost adds to the underground, lonely feeling you have while playing, and it also, allows for maximum concentration. Regardless of Pittman's reasons, I was fine with the game not having a soundtrack. Now, the gameplay for You Have to Win the Game was actually fantastic, to say the least. It was fluid and smooth, and you felt very much in control of the character. Nothing felt like it needed work, and I can't really find any negative things to say about the gameplay of the game, really. I mean, everything was just good. The items allowed for further types of movement, and allowed for your, repertoire of skills, and thus extra buttons weren't really needed to extend the game's playability. The game also was intuitive for teaching the player how to play properly and how to utilize each skill along the way, by showing you how to use it, by making you having to use it to exit the section where you found it. Whoa, that was kind of weird. It was very well done, and it got you to stay involved with the game, so that it made me play twice successively, and it's been a long time since I've played a game, finished it without stopping, and then played it again and finished it again. That's been a very long time since that's happened for me. Now, one of the downfalls to most developers' first games is that they usually work on the graphics and gameplay more than anything else, and the story is kind of left to the side and even sometimes not even thought about or discussed. Unfortunately, You Have to Win the Game is one of those games that you didn't have a story whatsoever. You just went with the premise that you can win this game just by playing it, and therefore a story or plot wasn't really needed. The player themselves was just plunged directly into the game with no foresight as to why they are doing what they are doing. Like, a small story could have been easily inserted in the game in the form of a text block at the beginning, and it would have been more than enough, really. Now, although the game is the same no matter how many times you play it, there are different ways to play the game, such as you can play as one of the developer's cats. Yeah, I didn't do that yet, so I don't know what that's about. Another one has the character wearing sunglasses throughout the entire journey, so that's not really a big real deal really either. So there have also been some online challenges issued in regards to speedruns and to finishing the game without dying, which has been done, and Pittman has even included finishing the games in those ways as achievements. It may not be much in regards to replay value, but at least it's something nonetheless. Overall, getting past the lack of music in the story, the game is pretty incredible, and as I said, I'm actually looking quite forward to purchasing Super Win the Game very, very soon, and quite possibly it'll become another Indie Source episode, because I really enjoyed playing this game, and it was free. I mean, how can you not want to at least try it? So if you are interested in You Have to Win the Game, it can be downloaded and played through Steam for free, as I said, and it's well worth, an hour or two to play through and just have a bit of fun. Well, that's it for me this time. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Indie Source, and if you did, please click the like button down below to help other people find the video as well. If you are new to the channel and like what you just watched, subscribe to see more upcoming videos and reviews. And as always, thank you all for watching. I'm the Old World Gamer, and I will see you all soon for another indie game.